moment she fell down into her memories of the years spent growing up on the Upper East Side of this city, of a childhood filled with love and security and the most wondrous of times. Lost in remembrances of times past, she eventually roused herself and went back to the drawing board, looking at the panel she had just completed. It was the final one in a series of 6, and together they composed a winter landscape in the countryside. She knew she had captured most effectively the essence of a cold, snowy evening in the woods, and bending forward, she picked up the panel and carried it to the other side of the studio, placing it on a wide viewing shelf where the rest of the panels were aligned. Staring intently at the now complete set, she envisioned them as a giant-sized backdrop on the stage, which is what they would soon become. As far as she was concerned, the panels were arresting and depicted exactly what the director, Tony Verity, had requested. The sharp buzzing of the doorbell brought her head up sharply, and her concentration was instantly broken. She went to the intercom on the wall, lifted the phone. "Hello? It's Jack. I know I'm early. Can I come up?" "Yes, it's okay." She pressed the button that released the street door, and then ran downstairs to the floor below in order to let him in. A few seconds later, Jack Wilton, bundled up in a black duffel coat and carrying a large brown shopping bag, was swinging out of the elevator, walking toward her down the corridor, a grin on his keen, intelligent face. "Sorry if I'm mucking up your working day, but I was around the corner, at the Chroma Gallery with Billy Tompkins. It seems sort of daft to go home and then come back here later. I'll sit in a corner down here and watch CNN until you quit." "I just did," she said, laughing. "I've actually finished the last panel." "That's great. Congratulations." As he stepped into the small foyer of her apartment, he put down the shopping bag, pulled her into his arms, and pushed the door closed with his booted foot. He hugged her tightly, brought her closer, and as his lips brushed her cheek, then nuzzled her ear, she felt a tiny frisson, a shivery feeling. There was an electricity between them that had been missing for ages. She was startled. Seemingly, so was he. Jack pulled away, glanced at her quickly, and then instantly brought his mouth to hers, kissing her deeply, passionately. After a second, he moved his mouth close to her ear and murmured, "Let's go and find a bed." She leaned back, looking up into his pellucid gray eyes, which were more soulful than ever at that moment. "Don't be silly." As she spoke, a small, tantalizing smile touched her lips, and her sparkling eyes were suddenly inviting. "Silly? There's nothing silly about going to bed. I think it's a rather serious thing." Throwing his duffel coat on the floor next to the shopping bag and putting his arm around her, he led her into the bedroom. He stopped in the middle of the room, and taking hold of her shoulders, turned her to face him, staring into her eyes, his own questioning. "You went missing for a bit," he said, sounding more English than ever. She stared back at him, said nothing. He tilted her chin, leaned down, and kissed her lightly on the mouth. "But I have the distinct feeling you're suddenly back." "I think so." "I'm glad, Lexi." "So am I," she answered. He smiled at her knowingly and led her toward the bed without another word. They sat down together side by side, and he began to unbutton her shirt. She tugged at his tweed jacket, and within seconds they were both undressed, stretched out on the bed. Leaning over her, he asked, "And where was it that you went?" "Not sure. Fell into a deep pit with my work, I suppose." He nodded, fully understanding, since he was an artist and tended to do the same at times when he was painting. But he had really missed her, and her withdrawal, her remoteness, had worried him. Now he brought his mouth down to her, his kisses tender. Alexandra felt that frisson once more, and she began to shiver slightly under his touching and kissing, which was becoming provocative. He continued to kiss her as he stroked her thigh, and she experienced a sudden rush of heat, a tingling between her legs. Unexpectedly, she stiffened. Swiftly, he brought his mouth to her mouth. His tongue sought hers, slid alongside hers, and they shared a moment of complete intimacy. And all the while, he did not stop stroking her inner thigh and the center of her womanhood, his fingers working gently but expertly. To him it soon seemed as though she was opening like a lush flower bursting forth under a warm sun. When she began to gasp a little, he increased his pressure and speed, wanting her to reach a point of ecstasy. He loved